Today we wanted to talk to you a little bit about not only burnout, but just thinking through, I'm Iffie Jennings, the founder of the Kindness Network. We focus on women that prioritize leading with empathy and kindness in their personal and professional life. One of our mantras is, in order to be genuinely kind to other people, you have to start by being kind to yourself and showing yourself empathy. So that's a part of our discussion today. Mm-hmm. So Kayla, as you think through empathy and kindness and kind of the work that you do, how do you do it in your self-practice?
Yeah, so I think probably the best place to begin is to talk about when I didn't have empathy for myself.
I love that, yeah.
So I grew up as a caretaker to my family. My mother was sick a lot, and so I'm the first daughter, and I was raised by a single parent. And so there were a lot of different money issues and just becoming like this self-awareness of me, and I became an achiever. So it's just like, let me get the best grades. I knew that my mom couldn't afford for me to go to college. So in my mind, my job in high school was to make sure that I got the best grades, to make sure that I went to college. And so my mother was very much a caretaker. And so it was kind of like, I got really, really good at having empathy for others, and also particularly being a woman of color. I was raised in a predominantly white school system. And so I had my own family culture of being African American and also being raised in a white world. And so it was kind of like I was a cultural navigator. So it was this awareness of like other people, and so am I safe in places? And so I'm a natural empath, but it was always about like what's going on in the room, what is it that people need, and very much kind of like being in this a space of like serving others. And so it was a good thing. Like I was raised to make sure that I was always giving back. If somebody had a need and I could help them, make sure that I was doing that. So I was constantly doing that. And so what that created for me is that I didn't have a lot of empathy for myself. Mm-hmm. I knew how to love others really, really well. I didn't know how to love myself well. And I didn't even know I didn't know that about myself.
Yeah, I think that's the hard part, right? When you're in a caregiver role and you learn to do it at such a young age, being able to understand kind of what are the things that you like and you value and how to be empathetic towards yourself. Mm-hmm. How are you doing that now? How are you learning to do that? What are some tips that we can kind of share with everyone in the room here, with all our friends?
What empathy looks like for me right now is, Alex said it, and it was on the slide right now, is like being fearless. I've had to do a lot of work for a while around like boundaries, and as a part of that work, it is making sure that I'm creating space for myself. And so one way that I actually do it is through a sabbatical. So in 2018, I burnt out. And I went on a sabbatical, and I learned that I didn't know how to rest. Just because you make the time to rest doesn't mean that you know how to. And it was my experience that if I had time, I would just feel it because I was a natural do and be busy. And so since that time, I've just taken an annual sabbatical every year. This year, it's usually in July, so in a couple of weeks, I will be on sabbatical again. That means I rest, and so does my business.
That's awesome. Does anyone else take sabbaticals throughout the year, take a break? Rhoda, yeah, yes? Awesome. So what do you, when you're thinking about the work that you do with your clients and how you take sabbaticals, entrepreneurship is hard, especially if you have competing priorities, right? So how do you work with your clients around rest? And, what brought you think, to that work to be kind of your mission of the work that you do in your business?
Yeah, and also I want to talk a little bit about like the reason why most people hire me is usually in a consulting or career coaching mode. And it's because when people decide to drop dollars, it's usually because, I have a problem that is connected to money, therefore I will invest in myself. Mm-hmm. I've not yet to have somebody say, you know what, I realize like when it comes to money, things come up short. I've made the money that I need. And to me, I think that is something, when I talk to people, I'm like, are you on a money path? Do you think if you just had more money that you would be happy? Because if you're in that spot, I'm not in a position to help you right now. Mm-hmm. My thing is to be with people to say like, I want to dig in because I have what I need right now, and I want to be content with what I have. And it doesn't mean that you don't achieve, but what I have found out, and something that is something that has been very interesting for me is that meeting people that are very, very wealthy and also seeing how unhappy they are. I've also met people that are poor that are also very unhappy, but for me that means that there's something going on, and money isn't it. But most of us, honestly, even based upon this money conversation, we are striving for more money. Some of us think, oh, we just need more time, and really my call to people is to rest. And so resting is about stillness, so you can come face to face with yourself. That's really, really hard to do because most of us, we're so busy, we don't know ourselves. We truly, truly don't.
I think it's part of an ongoing journey that we're always on, is continuing to learn who we are. I think it changes over time. Mm-hmm. What's one thing one thing that everyone can do in this room if we're thinking about resting or the work that you do, one thing that you have your clients do that's just one quick thing they can take away from the conversation?
It's not quick.
Maybe not quick, maybe not easy,
I know.
but
everybody
tangible,
kind of wants
actionable.
Well, you'll probably, I don't know if any of you all noticed that in my presentation yesterday, I didn't give you any tips. You don't need any more information. Most of us know what we need to do. We're just not doing anything with it, And so my tip is to become self-aware and also to take responsibility. And something that usually kind of gets in our way is that instead of being curious, we're judgmental. So when I say be self-aware, it means how do I become curious about myself? So if there's something that you know that you've wanted to be for a long time and you're not that, kind of ask yourself, what's going on? And most of the time the excuse that I hear from people, I just don't have enough time. And you've been saying that for 20 years.
Give a moment of silence for that one. I love that. In our conversation yesterday when we talked about tips or more information, you said we don't need any more information. We just need to get to work. Mm-hmm. Get to work and get started. Can you talk a little more about that?
Yeah. So one of the things I am an entrepreneur, but I'm also an activist. And I often have people say so my background is in education. So people are very interested in education, right? And so, and when I try actually not to tell people that I used to be a teacher, because then here the complaining starts. Oh, education, and in my mind, it's just instead of complaining, what if we were doing something about it? There's a crisis going on in schools right now with teachers, with students. We've seen that with gun control. We also see there's a mental health crisis going on with teachers. And so for me, it's the part of the doing piece is for people to stop complaining, judging each other, and take responsibility for what they can do.
Absolutely. I think that goes into kindness and empathy, right? Mm-hmm. You want to talk a little more about empathy and kindness and how you practice it and what you want the audience to know about it?
Why don't I ask you?
Ooh. Wasn't expecting that one. So when I think about kindness, I really think about, I look at it in two different ways. There's being nice, which I think is very people-pleasing, right? It's a starting point, but it's not about the individual that you're looking at. Kindness is more about the people that are in front of us. How do we help them, right? Empathy is putting yourselves in their shoes and giving them grace, right? And so that's how I look at kindness and empathy. And when I think about it more, I used to work in healthcare, and one of the things they would tell us to be more patient central is that individual that is in front of you, how would you, if it was your loved one, how would you want them to be treated? And so that's the lens that I take with kindness and empathy, and when I'm thinking about how to move that forward with my interactions during the day. I don't get it right every day. It's a journey, right? But I think I like to say we carry this invisible bag with us daily that we pack with kindness and empathy with our words and actions, and sometimes there are other items that get into that bag that's not filled with kindness, that's not filled with empathy, but the beauty of it at the end of the day is that we get to unpack it and start over the next day with leading with kindness and empathy. So that's kind of how I think about it. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I think for me, what I would say about empathy is when I was in the classroom, I used to teach students about it. And I think the best analogy for me is to think about a pair of shoes. So most of us wear shoes in some form or fashion, but it's like if we were to stand in somebody else's shoes, what would that be like? And the connection that we could have with one another.
Yeah, I love that. Yep. Anything else you want to say to the group?
Yeah, I wanted to share an origin story with you all. I hand wrote it because I knew that I would be nervous.
Same.
Well, I come from a family that's closed. And what that means is that you don't let the outside world know what's going on the inside. You put your makeup on, you put your earrings on, and you push through. And so my experience is like, you would not get up on a stage and you would not share. But I wanted to share just a little bit about my story, and I'm going to read it with you all, if that's okay. Okay. For years, I played the part of the caretaker, first to my family, friends, and community. I was the person that everyone looked for strength, stability, and getting things done. That was until, in 2018, I ended up in my doctor's office after chronic illnesses. He said, "Your job is making you sick." That was followed by a trip to a specialist who told me the only cause he could find for my condition was stress. In the summer, I decided not to return to work as a teacher. I was in bad shape. I was hampered by guilt that I was letting my community down, and I was letting myself down by leaving. I decided to go on sabbatical only to learn that I didn't know how to sit still. That was until I fell off rock bottom. It landed me in a Colorado basement for 3 years. Unemployed, depressed, and temporarily immobilized by a knee injury, I felt like I was being punished. I wouldn't slow down, so I was forced to. Learning to be still and being is the hardest thing I've ever done, and I've been through some hard things. In the stillness, I learned how to be human again. Instead of pushing my emotions down, I allowed myself to feel them. It was exhausting learning how to feel again. Absolutely exhausting. As my carefully planned and curated life fell apart before my eyes and others, I felt shame. The girl who had it all together at all times was human. I became the person that I had judged as weak in others. In my weakness and sorrow and pain, I found a new version of myself, a new version of God, and a new purpose, helping people, healing people, helping organizations and leaders experience the power of pause and play in their search to make the world better. In essence, this is the lesson that took me 40 years to get. Finally, which no one tells you the secret to, how to put the oxygen on yourself first when you feel like you're drowning.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being vulnerable. I know that was hard. Thank you so much. How much time do we have? 5 minutes?
10 minutes.
10 minutes? Oh. 5:10.
10. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for, thank you for interviewing me. I don't know if anybody has a quick question that I can answer. And then I'm going to do an activity with you all.
Hi, my name's Sheena. I'm the founder of The Mothering. Thank you so much for sharing your story. So much of it I relate with. One question I have is about being kind and having empathy. I think as you navigate business, if you're a naturally kind person, what I find, sometimes people don't receive it well and you get burned. What kind of advice would you give someone to protect themselves but not lose heart or get discouraged on when people are just not kind, but you want to be?
I think the first thing that I would say to them is that kindness is a superpower. I had a coach tell me that last year, and it was the very first time that anybody told me that my kindness was a superpower. And what she said to me is that I can say hard things to people and they can hear it. And so I think what happens sometimes when you're kind, there's a boundary issue that comes up where you're kind to other people, but you're not kind to yourself. And sometimes it looks like loyalty. You're loyal to other people, but you're not loyal to yourself. And so there's a dissonance that happens. And so that's, again, there's not a quick tip for that. It's the curiosity. It's getting with really honest people. So you have the fearless inquiry, but you also need to surround yourself at least with 1 or 2 people that will tell you the truth, even if you don't like it. It takes courage to do that. Like, they're willing to risk their friendship because they love you so much to tell you if something is truly hurting you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for letting us share this time with you today. Thank you, Iffie, for interviewing me. And I just want to say how fantastic you all are. I know oftentimes we come to these stages, we're here to look at like, oh my goodness, this person's so awesome. Guess what? You're awesome. Have a great day.